Evening. Thank you so much to everybody for making time to come to this important meeting. We have a number of people here who are on committees and they have been working tirelessly for weeks, and we're going to get to hear tonight what they've been doing, and we appreciate that they are here and that everybody is here. We'll start with some news from the Transition and Ritual Committee, and then the Rabbi Search Committee will make a presentation, and Yaron will also speak. After everybody speaks, and we're hoping to keep that to about a half an hour, there will be an opportunity for questions and comments from everybody. And we're going to take questions through the chat function in Zoom. So most of you are probably familiar with this. At the very bottom of your screen, there's a little bubble and it says chat. If you want to make a comment or ask a question, you click on that button and just write either the letter Q for question or C for comment. And then send that to Sam or to BEKI Tefila, however it's listed on, you'll see a drop-down list. And we will make every effort to take the questions in the order that we get them. Very important, we are gonna mute everybody. And if you're not muted, we'll ask you to mute yourselves for the entire process, except unless you are being called on to ask a question or make a comment. And that is just to keep down the background noise of pets and machines and everything that we all have in our homes, so that it's easier for everybody to hear what's going on. Out of respect for our speakers and their time, we're going to keep an eye on the time, and we're going to ask you to keep your questions and comments brief. Please know that we may not get to everybody's questions at this meeting, but I know that the search committee will make every effort to hear from everyone who has questions or comments. It's also important to note that the session is being recorded so that people who weren't able to be here tonight will be able to hear the program. I just wanted to add a couple of things briefly. There are times when the holy and the mundane are intertwined, and some would argue that that is most of the time or even all of the time, but that of course is a topic for another night. Our search for a rabbi is holy work and it is mundane. We are not just looking for someone to run things, but we are trying to find a spiritual leader who will help guide us on our path as a sacred community. As a congregation, we have many ideals in common and many that diverge. We pride ourselves on being accepting and welcoming to all, in spite of or even because of our differences. I would like to urge everyone during this process to listen to one another, even when we don't agree. The search committee and Yaron are committed to hearing from as many people as possible, and you'll hear more about that later. In that spirit, I would like to offer a tiny little prayer for tonight's activity. May we listen to each other's voices and be granted wisdom and intuition to succeed in our goals. And I think, Yaron, did you want to say something before the next committee?
Yes, so I wanted to welcome everybody. As Shoshana said, we billed this evening as a town hall meeting. I wanted to be able to provide information to you, and we will do that in the first half of the meeting, and then we will open it up to a town hall questions and answers. I will do most of the heavy lifting when it comes to questions and answers, but the entire board is with us tonight. And if you have a question for a person on the board and not myself, or if you're simply tired of listening to me, by all means, say that your question is directed at somebody else. I would like to start the evening by introducing our interim rabbi, Rabbi Carl Astor. Carl graciously agreed to step in and accept the position of an interim rabbi. I would like to have Carl introduce himself. I hope that you all know Carl, and if you don't, please just scroll through the screens until you see Carl's picture. He's going to try and wave to you so you know who he is. And I also hope that you were all able to read Carl's email from yesterday. So without further ado, Carl, if you don't mind, please.
Wow, I have permission to unmute myself. That's already a big step. Hi, everybody. I'm looking down at the bottom here and I see 93 participants. So that really, to me, says a lot about this congregation and everything that I've experienced up to this point, and in a large sense, why I'm here in New Haven in the first place. And I won't go into all the details, but I do have a little prepared statement for tonight, and I don't want to take too much time. I am Carl Astor, AKA Rabbi Carl, whatever you want to call me. I'm not fussy. As many of you know, I've been in New Haven for a little over 3 years now, and I've been a member of the BEKI community since 2017. So for most of you, I can't see everybody, but for most of you, I'm not a total stranger. The only difference now is that instead of being what I came here to be, which is basically a Jew in the pew, I am now going to be, thanks to the generosity of of your leadership, I'm going to be the interim rabbi, and I appreciate very much your faith in asking me to do that. The position could be for 6 months, or it could be longer. It depends how long it takes for the congregation to choose a permanent rabbi. But I want to assure you that it will not be longer than that. Once you choose a permanent rabbi, I will graciously bow out and thank heavens. But just to be clear, as of March 1st, I am your rabbi. The difference between a permanent rabbi, to explain this, and a interim rabbi is mainly one of agenda. It's a question of agenda. You really want your permanent rabbi to have a clear agenda, what he or she hopes to accomplish here at the congregation and in the community. On the other hand, you don't want your interim rabbi to have any other agenda than to be here and to help you to get ready to choose a rabbinic leader who will best serve you in the future. And when I say serve you, in this case, I mean also serve me, because it will be my rabbi. And that's what I'll try to do. That will be my main focus of my term, whatever that term is here, is to help you as a congregation to be better ready to choose a new rabbi and to heal from any wounds that need to be tended to. I do have extensive experience in the rabbinate. As you know, I served for first 7 years in Wayne, New Jersey, and then 32 years in New London, just up the road. And 1 year I served as interim rabbi in Scarsdale, New York. And I just mentioned that because I think that's, for me, that's important. I got some good experience being an interim there. And I think I was able to be of some service to them. If for any reason, some of you may not have met me yet, please introduce yourselves to me by email, by phone, and hopefully sooner than later in person. Sharon and I, thank God, just on Monday got our second vaccine. So I think we're turning the corner. Please feel free to offer to me any suggestions that you have. Don't feel that you're being a nudge or nudnik. I'm very interested in what all of you have to say. And I've already heard from a lot of you, and I appreciate it. And I hope that, when I respond, you understand how much I appreciate your feedback. I really, I see myself as quite responsive and quite harmless. So don't be timid. I don't want to take any more of your time now I know we have an important town meeting coming up to talk about other things. I really just wanted to say thank you for placing your faith in me for however long this lasts. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You know me, and you've decided to give me this opportunity, and I appreciate it. And thank you all for your outpouring of support, which has been incredibly bracing for me as I attempt to accomplish what I want to accomplish here. And I hope that I'll be able to help you in any way that I can, and you will approach me with any issues that you have. So, and thank you, Yaron, and the committee, and all the people that have been working with me to make this work. All right, you can proceed.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you very much. I also wanted to answer a question that came in the chat. We have established an email address, and Rabbi Carl's email address is rabbi@beki.org. We figured that you can't miss, and you cannot mispronounce. So feel free to reach out to Rabbi Astor through the rabbi@beki.org email. And now I would like to turn the microphone to Rachel Gerber, who will give us a brief report on the activities of the what I would call short term, which is how do we manage and what are we doing going forward in the short term ever since March 1st. So Rachel, the floor is yours.
I just want to add my voice to this and
We can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Much better.
That seems better, Rachel.
Okay, how's that?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Huh, okay. I just learned something about
Rachel, something's on your microphone. You keep putting papers or something on your microphone.
Oh, okay. How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So as many of you know, Carl and Sharon are already our beloved members of our congregation, participating in our services, weekdays and Shabbat and holidays, participating in study groups and classes and so much more. So obviously that transition is going to be much, much easier because of that familiarity. Rabbi Astor's primary focus at BEKI will be on his pastoral role, offering us support as a community and as individuals. He will be our practical and spiritual guide for occasions such as baby namings, brisses, B'nai Mitzvah celebrations, and although I hope there will be none of these, for funerals and Shiva observances if necessary. Rabbi Astor will also be MC for most of our services, in person and online, and he will of course be our resource for questions of Jewish law. Yaron wanted me to explain a little bit about the decision-making process for covering the many rabbinic and ritual tasks that Rabbi Tilson was responsible for. Daryl Cooperstock did an amazing job of listing and categorizing 6 densely written pages worth of tasks, with help from Jay Sokolow and Stephen Fraud, as well as from John Jay himself, who is extremely helpful throughout the process. Daryl, Jay, Stephen, and I met several times with Mike Hurwitz and Yaron, using that document to look at what should be the responsibilities of our part-time interim rabbi and to see what volunteers would then need to cover. Our amazing community has dozens upon dozens of volunteers who can read Torah, lead services, open and close the building, serve as Gabayim and Shamashim, and so much more. However, it became clear that the difficult issue was going to be coordinating all of these volunteers. For this reason, the board decided to create a part-time paid 20-hour per week position. And I'm delighted to say that Eva Schragus has been hired as our ritual volunteer coordinator. Eva has already met with Rabbi Astor and the ritual committee and has been working with many of you who will be playing important roles in the coming weeks. Eva's hard work and meticulous attention to detail will ensure that Rabbi Astor can focus on the big picture, which is the spiritual well-being of our community. Rabbi Astor wrote yesterday in his email to the community that one of his priorities will be giving us all more opportunities to say Kaddish for our loved ones by gradually and safely resuming daily in-person services. The board, as well as the ritual committee and the minyan captains, are working to make this happen. But as the rabbi wrote, we're going to need help from all of you to get our minyans going again. By the way, if you'd like to help in this process, please let me know. We'd love to have you join our ritual committee long-term or just for our next meeting, which looks like it's going to be March 14th. As soon as you decide that you're comfortable attending an outdoor or indoor service, please join us. I got my first vaccine dose a few hours ago, and I'm so excited that I'm going to be able to see many of you soon again without Zoom. It's going to be a while before we can share food, but I'm going to feel that we've truly reopened when Tuesday evening Minyan Captain Karen Cassip is handing out chocolates to a room full of people chatting after services. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, very much. One more item I wanted to mention as far as the transition is that you will notice pretty soon, either this week or next week, that our weekly happening that Rabbi John Jay was sending out is going to undergo an overhaul and revampment, and will become a lot more user-friendly. You will see it, you will recognize it, but you will be able to click on the section that interests you without having to scroll through a very, very, very long list of text to find what it is that you need to find in our weekly happening. So this will be happening either this week or next week, and I think you will all like the product very much. Next, I wanted to turn to the Rabbi Search Committee and our co-chairs, Carol Bass and Rachel Light. And if you ladies don't mind, please give us an update on the activities to date.
Thanks, Yaron. And is it okay if we screen share? We have a little slide deck. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see, can everybody see our screen? Yeah, okay, great.
Yes.
So I'm going to turn it over to Carol, who's going to present for a few slides, then I'll talk for a few slides, and then we have a little guest lecturer who's going to present as well.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Yaron. Thanks, Rabbi Carl. Thanks to everyone who has worked with Rabbi Carl to bring him on as our interim rabbi. What a blessing for us. And on a very brief personal note, I just want to say it's a real honor and a real privilege to be co-chairing the search committee. I feel reconnected with BEKI in a way that I haven't in quite a while, and I feel really excited about our future as a synagogue and as a community, and it's a great feeling. And we have a great team on the search committee, and so I'm really happy to be able to help with this work. Enough about me. So let's get to the report, I guess. I want to say a little bit about the timing of the search. And we have received some feedback about the speed of the search. Some people say it's important to go, to get a rabbi hired this year in time for the High Holy Days, and some other people say don't rush, don't go too fast. Some even have said, this is too fast. And so I just want to say a few words about that. Don't rush could mean a couple of different things. If don't rush means don't hire a rabbi just for the sake of having a permanent rabbi, we will not do that. I mean, first of all, we're not hiring, but we will not recommend someone who's not the right rabbi for BEKI. Some people, when they say don't rush, mean BEKI's not ready for a new permanent rabbi. The committee doesn't agree with that, but if that turns out to be the case, I think it will become clear when we as a congregation are meeting the finalist or finalists. It will become clear if it's just not the right time. So I really want to reassure everyone who has those concerns that our job as a search committee is to try to find the rabbi who is right for BEKI. And if that happens this year, it's great. And if it doesn't happen this year, then we'll try again next year. To get a little more substantively into why we are hurrying to get on track for potentially hiring someone this year. So there's three main reasons. One is that rabbis are hired in a certain cycle of every year, and now is the time, and we got a little bit of a late start. Typically, shuls get only about 5 to 7 applicants per search. And so there's no guarantee that any of them is going to be the right person for your synagogue, or that that person is going to decide that we're the right synagogue for them. And so we've been advised by our synagogue consultant at the United Synagogue for Conservative Judaism and by others who are really familiar with the search process that it's a good idea for us to get 2 bites at the apple. Look at people this year, and if it doesn't work out this year, then look again next year. If we decided instead to just hold off, not look for a permanent rabbi this year, take Rabbi Carl up on his really generous offer to remain with us for 1.5 years, there's still the possibility that next year's search wouldn't work out. And then it would be 2.5 years without a permanent rabbi. Second reason is that because Rabbi Tilson has stepped aside as of this week, it's going to be 6 months without a permanent rabbi already before the earliest time that we would be able to bring on someone new. Because of the pandemic and the isolation of that, many congregants, honestly, it's been 1 year since they've had regular contact with a rabbi. And so there are many congregants who are eager for us to get the right person on board as soon as possible. And finally, the search process has benefits even if we don't find the right person this year. It gives us a chance to meet candidates and have them give sermons and teach and get to know our community. It's a great way to see the strengths that other rabbis have to offer, and already this search process has gotten us thinking about what's most important to us as a community. What do we want to build on? What do we want to improve upon? And there's really no downside to considering candidates now. We're not going to recommend somebody. We're not going to settle for good enough. We're going to recommend someone if we think they're really the right person. So the outline of the search process itself, phase 1 was posting the job. And we're working exclusively through the placement service of the conservative movement, the Rabbinical Assembly and United Synagogue. And the job posting consists of an enormous questionnaire that tells candidates everything they would want to know about BEKI and New Haven. And so candidates can read that and really get an idea of, does it make sense for me to apply for this job or not? So it's very self-selecting. So that's done. We're currently working on phase 2 and phase 3 concurrently because of our compressed timetable. So phase 2, listening to the community, As you know, we did an online survey, and we'll have more about that later. The committee is speaking with each of the synagogue employees to get their input on what we need in a rabbi. We're doing online focus group interviews. We have 2 of those have taken place, 2 more are coming up. And if you have already participated, thank you so much. And if you haven't participated yet, please sign up. Simultaneously, we have started doing first round interviews, and these are short 30-minute Zoom interviews with typically 3 members of the search committee. It's a screening to determine who should go on to the second round. And because we're following the recommendation of the Rabbinical Assembly to ask the same standardized questions of each candidate, and those questions we drew from the Rabbinical Assembly's recommendations, and they're pretty general stuff like tell us about yourself and what draws you to BEKI. So those questions don't depend on what we're hearing from the congregation. Therefore, we started those first round interviews, and we're currently finishing up those first round interviews and developing a process for the second round. The second round interviews do depend upon synthesizing a lot of information, including the results of the survey and the focus groups. And so those will start once we have finished all of that internal work. Those will be, again, Zoom, everything's on Zoom. Those will be longer, more in-depth interviews with the full committee. When we have finished those, we'll put together all the feedback on those, and we will recommend, or rather we will choose 1 or more finalists who in a typical year would come and meet us in person and spend Shabbat with us. We can't do that this year. The Rabbinical Assembly is not allowing any in-person visits. So everything will be remote, and fortunately, other congregations have done this already. There's a lot of material and suggestions to help us design a really thorough, thoughtful series of online visits for finalists, so that as many members of the community can meet and interact with them in as many ways as possible. That will happen, we hope, after Passover. Then we will solicit feedback from all of you throughout those visits. And finally, the committee will recommend a candidate to the board, assuming that there is someone we can recommend. Rachel.
All right, thanks, Carol. So just a few more slides. And I guess I also just want to quickly say it's been a real privilege to be kind of co-chairing this committee. It was really an honor to be asked by Yaron, and I'm just thanking all of you for putting your faith in Carol and me. And we, I think, are making a pretty good team and have just a wonderful committee, and we're just kind of really enjoying the work and enjoying meeting candidates and kind of being able to serve BEKI in this way. So thank you for putting your faith in us. So a little bit about the timeline. Carol kind of talked about these 5 phases. You can see the way they're laying out. If you look at where we are today, we're almost done with the listening to the community phase. We just have a couple of more focus groups to do this coming Sunday and Monday. Then we'll be synthesizing that data. We will be done with our first round interviews by next Monday. And then we'll take some time to gather all of our data from the focus groups and bring that together with the survey data and put together a really good set of questions for the second round interviews, and go through those second round interviews between now or between mid-March and Passover. And then hopefully right after Passover, around the beginning of April and into mid-April, that's when we'll be doing the finalist interviews that all of you will be able to be part of. So that's the timeline that we're in right now. Option two, if we don't find anyone this cycle, then after finishing up, we'll go through this cycle again, starting with a job posting in September, and we'll go through the entire process of these 5 phases again, just with more time. And we may decide not to do another survey and not to do another set of focus groups, but certainly we'll go through the process again of posting the job and talking to candidates and all of that. A bit about the finalist interviews with the community. A number of people have asked us questions about what that will look like because it has to be on Zoom, as Carol was saying. As she said, we'll try to choose between 1 and 3 candidates as finalists. Maybe there'll only be 1. We'll see. All of the engagement will be done by Zoom. We have already started thoughtfully designing these engagements. We're getting input from other communities that have had successful COVID searches and unsuccessful COVID searches and kind of gleaning best practices. We're talking with the RA that has lots and lots of material. We're also talking with businesses that have done searches and hiring during COVID, because we're not the only sort of employer looking to hire somebody during COVID. And so we'll be thinking about best practices across the board. We'll be planning multi-day, multifaceted engagements, things like schmoozing in small groups with the candidate that the congregation will be invited to in small groups. Prayer sessions. We'll particularly be looking for perhaps a Monday or a Thursday morning where we can have a Torah service, so we can at least feel what that would feel like, since we can't do a Shabbat service with the candidate, but we could do sort of a longer kind of Monday or Thursday service with Torah reading. Maybe there'll be a Rosh Chodesh in there, and we can plan a Rosh Chodesh service that people can come to over Zoom. Certainly we'll be asking the candidate to give a sermon, a Dvar Torah at some point. We'll be doing some adult education classes, maybe a teen conversation, maybe some sort of meeting with young families, a town hall style moderated interview kind of thing like we're doing tonight. So we're really going to look for multiple ways that all of you can be engaged in a few different ways, even if you'd like, to get to know the candidates. And then we'll be designing a process for all of you to be able to give feedback to us in a quantitative and qualitative way, so that we can really hear from all of you what you're excited, who you're excited about, if you're excited, what your concerns are, and feel like we're really bringing in somebody that that the community is excited about. So just a few sort of basic updates. We have our survey results. You hopefully all were part of the survey, taking the survey, and we have results for you that we're going to share tonight, kind of in summary form. And then in this coming Monday's email, we'll also put survey results as well. Our focus groups, we just want to remind you to please sign up if you haven't already, and we'll be sharing those findings with you by email around the middle of March. You may all have noticed we're sending emails around to the whole community every Monday, and we'll continue to do that for the duration of the search. So we'll be always updating you weekly, and that's where you'll be reading about survey results, focus group results, etc. And about candidates, we have 7 viable candidates. We've offered all of them first round interviews, and we've talked to now 5 out of 7. And some of them are very exciting. We're really kind of excited about some of the conversations that we've had, and feeling really, really good about that. So I am now going to turn this over to Joy Kaufman. We have been so fortunate to have her help with the survey. She really helped with the design of it, with administering it, with analyzing all of the data, and preparing some really wonderful slides. So we're going to turn it over to her to give you the results of the survey.
Thanks, Rachel. So as you know, the survey started on February 12th. It was open for 11 days. One thing you may not know is that for those congregates who are not on the email list, the search committee actually reached out to them individually to assist them taking the survey if that was needed, or to send them a link. I think there were 50 member families not on that list. We have 283 member units and had 186 survey responses. So that's about 2/3 of the congregation took the survey, which is a very high response rate. Next slide, please. So one thing we did was we asked Peggy for data on the congregation, because we wanted to look at whether the segment of the congregation who took the survey was representative of the entire congregation. So this slide presents the whole membership in blue and the survey respondents in orange. And what you see here is that in terms of length of membership, it was almost identical in terms of who took the survey and who's in our community. So that's excellent. And similarly, we looked at who has kids at home and who doesn't. And again, the percentage of BEKI members who have kids at home is almost identical to the percentage of survey respondents who do. And so that helped us to see that we are reaching younger families, which was an important group to reach in the survey. So these are the overall results. And this slide doesn't have the definitions that were on the survey for each of these. And the way this is organized is the first column lists the percent of member families who ranked each of these roles as one of their top 3. And it's in order from the one that had the most people ranking it. So that's the rabbi as pastor, and that was 57.5%. all the way down to rabbi as fundraiser, which 2.7% of our community ranked as one of their top 3. In the second column, you see the average score of importance. So if you recall on the survey, first you were asked to read the definition of each of these roles and then score it from 5 to 1, with 5 being the highest level of importance and 1 being not at all important. And here you see the average rating for each of these roles that were had across the community. So when I look at this, so I do program evaluation for work. And when I look at this, the top 4 roles really stand out above the other roles, both in terms of the percentage of the community that ranks them, but also in terms of the average score of importance. And so if, as an evaluator looking at this, I definitely see that pastor, teacher, worship leader, and community building were the most important roles that were ranked across the community. So there are also 2 open-ended questions. And the first one said, do you have anything else you want to share with the committee about what BEKI needs and our next rabbi? And there were 3 overall areas of response. The first had to do with the fact that people want BEKI to stay the way BEKI is. They want to bring in a new rabbi who will retain and support our values. And so those values that came out very clearly in the data was that we're inclusive and participatory, that we are supportive and want to include individuals across all levels of observance, not just in respecting where they're at, but also in helping all of us to grow spiritually. And we want to welcome and embrace current and potential members. And part of that inclusivity includes folks from every demographic category that you can think of, and all abilities, and just that we're an open and inclusive community, and we want it to stay that way. The second thing that came out had to do with characteristics of an individual. And so people talked about wanting someone who's empathic and humble and flexible. And this had to do a lot with continuing to have services the way we have them. What came out very clearly was folks want someone with good social skills, who can communicate, is approachable, who listens, and also someone who inspires and is intelligent and has a strong social conscience. And the third area had to do with the way the rabbi leads services and acts in many ways as our spiritual leader. And so one thing that came out very clearly was that the rabbi, they want someone who gives stimulating and meaningful sermons, that they're a skilled worship leader, but they're also willing to let members play an active role in services. and that they're willing to continue the traditions we have in terms of that we have traditional services that are egalitarian, and people want to keep the same level of ritual observance and opportunities for communal prayer, and that was especially around the daily minions. We had a group of folks who clearly want to bring more music into services, and others who want to focus on engaging our youth. And folks want a scholar, someone who's engaged in teaching and knowledgeable and able to guide us and help make those decisions we have to make about halakha, both for our community and for the greater community. One thing I neglected to mention, so when people respond to open-ended surveys, it's usually the first thing that comes to their mind and the thing that's most salient or important to them. And the things that came out as themes were those that were endorsed, they had to be endorsed by at least 5 individuals who completed the surveys, or at least 5 survey respondents. And so not everything that everyone said is here, but these are the main themes that came out once the data was analyzed. So I did typical analysis of qualitative data, pulled out themes, and looked at it that way. Okay. And the second question had to do with, do you have any thoughts about the transition that you'd like to share? And so most members asked that the committee take their time to find the right person. There were about 25% of the community talked about timing, and the majority of those talked about wanting to take time to find the right person. And many folks suggested an interim rabbi for all the reasons that we can all think about. Folks definitely want an applicant to visit in person and to lead Shabbat morning services, including a sermon, but unfortunately that's just not in the cards for us because of the COVID restrictions. It's clear that members want to continue to give feedback throughout the process. That came out very clearly, and the committee has put things in place to do that. And the members want the process to be transparent and the committee to communicate on a regular basis. And finally, some members are confused or upset about how the decision to seek a new rabbi was made. And finally, although not in the slide, because I didn't prepare this, that was the community is very grateful to the committee for the work that they're putting in and taking the time to do this.
Thank you so much, Joy. And this is just a reminder that if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything at all that comes up for you at any point while we're your search committee, we have this email address, rabbisearch@beki.org, and please don't hesitate to reach out. I get all of those emails and I'll either respond to you or I'll forward your email to Carol or someone else on our committee. So I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back to Yaron.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Joy. Incredible work. I wanted to say that I take the time to participate in most of the meetings of the committees that you heard from today, and I'm continuously amazed, amused, and encouraged by the level of seriousness and also the level of enthusiasm that I hear in these meetings. And the committees are working really hard for us and doing excellent work for us. I wanted to also say, basically you heard our short-term and you heard our longer-term plans. And just to complete the picture as far as long-term plans, there was one last thing that I wanted to say about our long-term plans, and that is that I agreed to stay in my position for 1 more year and lead the congregation through the transition and through the process of selecting a rabbi, and for purposes of continuity, I decided to stay on 1 more year, unless, of course, one of you decides to start an impeachment process, which I promise to not stand in your way and gladly vacate my seat. And with that, what I would like to do now is open the floor to questions, and I will do my best to answer. And if I don't have the answer, then one of the board members or the committee chairs will be able to help. So Sam, go ahead and fire at me.
All right, so if people wrote their question as is, I will just read it for time's sake. If you just put question, we'll ask you to unmute. So the first one is from Lyndon, which is a two-parter. One, has there been any thought of soliciting candidates from AJR or Hebrew College? And wondering if the final engagement is to include meeting young families, if there would also be parity for those chronologically older members.
Yeah, I can. Oh,
Go ahead, Carol. Or Rachel.
I was going to answer that and just say that at this point, we are only interviewing candidates who are members of the RA. We did apply for a waiver, which would allow us to interview candidates from Hebrew College, for example. The waiver was denied because we had only had our job posting up for about a week. And the thought was we should first exhaust all of the RA candidates before looking elsewhere. We were told that if we applied for the waiver again after some time, that would probably be granted. So we can sort of keep that in the backs of our minds as well. And yes, we will certainly be designing the finalist process to try to hit all of the age groups, all of the constituencies, different kinds of engagements. And yes, we will certainly be looking for multiple ways for all of our congregants to engage with the finalists.
Okay, from Judy and Rick, is the committee opening to negotiating a July 1st start instead of in August due to the early high holy days this year?
I believe that's a question for the board.
I will say that when a candidate is proposed to the board will move quickly on it. It will be, in my mind, wonderful to have a new rabbi for the high holidays. I am hopeful that that will be the case, but if it's not the case, that is fine with me. In the last meeting of the search committee, I clearly stated exactly that. It would be very nice to have a new rabbi for the high holidays this year, but I don't want them to feel pressed for time or shortcut the process because of that pressure. So they should take their time and find the right rabbi for us. Hopefully it'll be for these high holidays, and if not, we will wait another year and a half, another year.
If I can clarify why I asked the question, may I?
Absolutely.
I'm asking this from the standpoint of being a rabbi who has moved to new communities and just imagining what it would be like to move to a new community in a new synagogue and within 5 weeks be up on the bima to lead Rosh Hashanah services. So that's why I was wondering if there's flexibility for the rabbi to start 2 months earlier rather than 1 month early. Thank you.
No, I understand the question, Rick, and I appreciate it very much. And I think the answer stays. It's exactly the answer that I gave.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that Gadiel's next question about looking beyond the RA, applying for additional for permission was covered in the first answer. Gadiel does come back around, so if you need to ask that, you can. Marisol asked, regarding focus groups, will there be outreach to members of certain age groups or family size if the volunteers who come to the first scheduled focus groups don't represent the various groups that make BEKI special, or perhaps to Joy's analysis that don't map up the way that the survey responses did?
Rachel, you might want to know about that as well as the teen meeting as well.
Yes, thank you, Yaron. So yes, we have thought about engaging teenagers as one of our core constituents to help us think about the next rabbi. So Annie has graciously offered to host a focus group tomorrow night with teenagers in our shul. And Becky May has offered to follow up with any teens who don't join that focus group. So we're going to be able to get a teen perspective. And John Weiser, who is wonderfully running all of our focus groups, has offered that anyone who's not able to attend a focus group can write him a letter and mail it, can email, can call. You know, there are multiple ways where your thoughts can get to John, and he has put the questions, he will make the questions available to anyone who can't join a focus group, and they can come to us in writing.
I would like to add that to what Rachel just said, and that is there is a constituent within BEKI that is not using emails or not Zooming. For the initial survey that we did, the search committee members called every single one of those people in an attempt to get their feedback for the survey. And we offered those members to submit their thoughts in writing if they feel comfortable doing that. Yes, there are still people that write letters, and we felt that it was important to reach out to them. So we actually sent them letters and invited them to reply in writing or in an email or in whichever way, phone call or any other way that they feel they would like to provide their input.
Okay. Comment from Samuel Katz. Would you like to unmute? Okay, I'm not seeing Samuel. Okay, we can come back to Samuel. Max had a question. Max is asking, what career stage or stages of rabbis is the committee interviewing?
So under the rules of the RA placement service, new graduates, well, rabbis with less than 2 years of pulpit experience are not permitted to apply to synagogues our size. They can apply only to the smallest synagogues. So we're considering everyone beyond that. I can tell you that we don't have any applicants who are only 2 years out of rabbinical school, but we're considering everyone who applies who meets the criteria.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sam.
I'll go back to Samuel's comment. I can just read out. Online presence is not the same as in-person presence. I would prefer to wait. I will follow that with a question that's related that came in a little bit later, which was, can we go through all stages of the process but wait until New Haven residents have all been vaccinated and have the final visit done in person? From Jennifer.
Yeah, so Carol and I had a meeting yesterday with Miriam Abram-Stark, who's our UCSJ consultant for the Northeast. And officially the RA says that the no in-person visits will be reconsidered April 1st. So we were kind of wondering, well, maybe if we just hold out till April, will that rule go away and we'll be able to do in-person visits? She said all signs right now are that that will be continuing for quite some time. So, so waiting a month or 2 or 3 or waiting for New Haven residents to be vaccinated is probably not going to change the RA's decision. That being said, we can go through the entire Zoom process in April with the candidates. And if something changes with the RA while we're making decisions in April or May or even June, if we are still kind of on the fence and thinking about it, we can, you know, always see if any of the candidates are still available and still interested. So we can kind of stay closely in touch with the RA and see if there's any likelihood that that will change.
And just as a note, at least part of the reasoning for the RA's ban on any in-person interviews is out of fairness to the candidates, because there are some candidates who might feel safe enough to travel and some candidates who cannot do that. And if they're close enough to drive, you know, if they have people they could stay with, or if they have to get on a plane, their situations are not equal. And so it would disadvantage or potentially disadvantage candidates who can't safely travel.
That being said, we've talked to a number of congregations who did a successful search last year over Zoom during COVID. Remember, COVID's been going on for a year. So anyone who was hired last year was hired in this COVID non-in-person way. And we've gotten some really good feedback from congregations that hired and are really happy and have some great ideas for us and sort of great hope and optimism for us.
Okay, I think that we are up to Lyndon's question was answered, I believe, or at least not the exact letter, but around the congregation size letter rating equivalent. You spoke to that about experience, but I don't know if we know the exact.
Do we know what letter we're rated?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Okay.
We're in the category of, you know, from whatever it is, 150 to 300 or whatever households, member units.
Okay. Nanette, do you want to elaborate on your question?
Nanette, you're on mute.
Nanette, you're still muted.
I think her question was about gender. Is that right, Sam?
It was. I just didn't know if she.
Yeah, Nanette, we are interviewing both men and women.
Okay, let's go to Jay Sokolo's question. Jay, does the process allow collateral info, talking in other words to members from previous pulpits?
Yes, right, Carol? I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been getting all kinds of insider information and people who know people, and yes, we will absolutely be able to check references and talk to people and all that sort of thing.
So let me just follow up. At what stage will you sort of release names in previous congregations to us so we can start working our Jewish geography?
Yeah, when we are done with all the second round interviews and we meet as a committee and decide who the finalists are, whether it's one person, 3 people, whatever, then we will certainly be announcing who those finalists are, where they've come from, and a schedule for all of the engagements that that we're hoping to have. I guess I don't know exactly. I mean, we haven't discussed the exact, date that will occur, but it should be sort of right around Pesach, after, a little before, a little after, kind of in that zone, beginning of April, perhaps. But yeah, you won't be meeting people blind. You won't be meeting people that you don't know, who they are and where
Yeah, Jay, the answer to your question is yes.
Yes.
Okay, Isaiah, will you unmute? Oh, you already are. Go ahead.
My question was, I understand that we've received 7 applications. I'm just wondering if you can briefly, give an overview of who they are.
I really don't think we can. I think it's all confidential right now. We can tell you that we have 7 viable candidates with whom have done or will do first round interviews. An additional candidate withdrew after the first round interview. I don't think it was because we were mean to them. I think they just decided it wasn't what they wanted to pursue. Beyond that, I think it needs to be confidential at this stage.
Okay, there are no other questions after this one that I'll read. So if someone would like to get in, please send a message. As a follow-up to the in-person versus Zoom conversation, the question is, what would be the term of the initial contract for the rabbi in terms of years?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually just were talking about this again with Miriam yesterday, our consultant for the Northeast region. She was saying that while initial contracts are often 3 years in length. Some congregations that have been hiring during COVID are choosing to do a 2-year initial contract, just as a kind of, nod to the fact that it's a little bit different. And so that certainly would be up to the board, but just to throw that out there that there's some doing 2, some doing 3, and I don't know what the board will want to do.
Daryl, go ahead.
Not 1 and not 10, I think is the answer.
Yeah.
I had a quick question about process. Is there an endpoint to, during this cycle, you will be accepting submissions for, interested candidates? And are we at all limited by the RA in how many candidates we can interview during this cycle?
So the answer to the second question is no, I don't think there is any limit. I think we can interview as many candidates as apply and as we want to interview. We haven't currently set a cutoff date for applying. The posting is still open. We got an application last night. So, at this point, bring them on. We want to know who's interested.
Mhm.
At the moment, there are no other questions.
I think David Cooperstock has his
David
hand
Cooperstock
up.
has his hand
Yeah,
up.
I thought I submitted a question. I guess I
David,
didn't.
you are so right. You did submit a question. I forgot to put it down, but you may go with a lengthy question at this point.
In the spirit of these candidates interviewing us, just as we are interviewing them, are you going to be making available names of congregants who are willing to be contacted by the candidates, particularly as you get to the last round? People not on the committee, but possibly outside the process, who are willing to talk about their experience with the congregation, etc.
That's a great idea, David. Yeah, I think that's a really wonderful idea. So we will certainly kind of add that to our thinking for the finalist process. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Oh, and I just got a message from our intrepid committee member, Carol Koenig, answering Lyndon's question. We are a Group B synagogue, which is the category for shuls with membership between 251 and 500 member units.
Thank you.
Sam, are there any other questions?
Comment.
Oh, comment from Raina?
Yeah, in terms of what you just said, Rachel, wouldn't another way for whoever is the new rabbi or is considering being the new rabbi, talking with congregants, bring one of the schmoozes? I mean, I think that may be a more natural way than just calling people up.
Sure. I mean, we definitely hope, and we would enlist all of you in this process where if we're doing schmoozes, we want the rabbi to connect with us and like us, right? As much as we are connecting with the rabbi and liking the rabbi. So to that end, yes, we hope you'll come to things that are the smaller group things and really chat and not just talk about rabbi stuff, but talk about, what's your favorite trip you ever went on, or, schmooze, right? And hopefully there'll be some connections made, and that may be one way that the rabbi will follow up with congregants from BEKI, is making some of those connections and following up later. But I certainly think David's idea is also a great one. If rabbis ask, we can certainly look for some people who are willing to be called and have conversations afterwards.
I saw another comment or question, Sam. Or am I wrong? Okay, no?
Jay's
Good.
joke, or there's not another comment or question at the moment.
Okay. all I can say is that I'm very happy to be able to provide all of you this update. I, on behalf of the board, would like to promise you that this process of selecting a rabbi will be as inclusive as we could possibly make it, and as considerate and as thorough as we can possibly make it. We have a great committee and we have a great community, and I think the community and the committee working together will eventually yield for all of us a very good match. And I have a great confidence in both the short-term way that we will operate and the long-term that we will operate. I thank all of you for being here tonight and for making the effort to listen. And if you think about a question that you forgot to ask tonight, my phone is always available, my email is always available, and you can contact me anytime. I used to joke with my business partners that I don't eat, I don't sleep, and I don't go to the bathroom. So you can contact me anytime. It's 9:10. It's just about 10 minutes after what we set our time to be. If there's no more questions, I will turn it to Shoshana to do the closing, please.
Yes. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone, and we're getting a lot of chat messages to that effect. So people who are on committees and your own, if you want to feel good, you should read the chats because people are giving you a lot of praise, all of you, for the time and effort you're putting in and this, the seriousness with which you're doing this. So we all very much appreciate that. On another note, next Wednesday evening, we have a very special schmooze. Our very own Roya Hakakian is going to do a book talk about her book, which hasn't even been published yet. We are going to be like, we are so on the cutting edge with this. We are going to launch her book promotion tour. And
but you can put your name on the list because we're carrying it in the bookstore. As soon we're going to get it hot off the press, and then you'll get it too. So just email me or gift shop at BEKI.org, and you can be on the list. Thank you very much.
And as usual, her writing is incredible. They sent me a PDF and I started looking at it yesterday and I almost got nothing else done because I just kind of fell into her prose, which is beautiful. It's a book called A Beginner's Guide to America for the Immigrant and the Curious. So that's next Wednesday at 8 o'clock, same Zoom link. And I hope to see many of you there. And I think that's it for this evening. Thank you very much, everyone who came.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you for coming to this town hall meeting. Good night.
Good night.
Sam and Sam, Shoshana, whoever, you'll take the recording and well, Daryl can guide you on how to do it so that
You can just do it. I don't have to. I'm the one who put the record on.
So you can do that.
Yeah, I can do that, and then I can actually send the recording as an